another stack of books because that's what we do here. And I love it. Okay. Sorry. My baby learned how to talk and he's just very talkative and he's looking at me and smiling and I can't. I just can't. He thinks I'm talking to him. Okay. It's a beautiful fall day, feeling a little nostalgic. Figured I would show you guys some of my own personal childhood favorite books that I still love to rant about. I actually have a niece right now who is all about reading and I have shared a couple of these with her. And so, yeah, let's get started. Okay, another stack of books. Okay, first and foremost, you can't make fun of me. It's the internet, so I'm sure people will, but you can't make fun of me. A Glory of Unicorns by Bruce Coville. I love this. Okay, so that's another thing too. If you're triggered by beat up books, you might just want to click away because these books, they're the copies that I read when I was like young. And that's how I knew that I mean, that's how you know that I still love these books. They made such an impression on me that they have literally moved with me to different states 15 plus times. So they've been in packing boxes. They've had a 5-year-old play with them. They've had, I wasn't 5 years old when I read these, I'm sorry, like, you know, a middle schooler, probably at the bottom of some pile of clothes at some point. So you can see this one. I actually remember buying these stickers at the Scholastic Book Fair that I got this from. So I have like a little sticker in here. And then you have like the way that I wrote my name. Isn't it cute? And then go farther. See, I have like one of these. Does anyone remember like the body stickers? These are you're supposed to put like on your eye or like on your hand or on your cheek. Like I have one of those on here. I'm afraid to take it off anymore. You got some like colored pages. Can't help it. But anyways, A Glory of Unicorns, and this is a book full of short stories about unicorns, and I loved it, and I will never not love this book. I need to reread it. I have not reread it in a long time, but I remember reading this over and over and over again and looking for books like this. This was when I was like, no, I looked up this author like way back when on some big old Apple computer. I looked up this author and found, I think Ink Spell actually came from here. I then found Ink Heart from this book. I'm sorry, it's Ink Heart from this book and read that one. But anyways, moving on. Glory of Unicorns. The next one is Just Ella by Margaret Peterson Haddix. This is not an old copy. I found this copy at McKay's in Nashville. It's a used bookstore. What's funny is I remember this book, and that's how I knew to pick it up because I remember it. It scarred me. There's actually a scene in this book. It's a Cinderella retelling. It's a very good Cinderella retelling about how true love at first sight isn't a real thing. And Cinderella finds herself in a very awful situation with the prince and eventually finds her way into the dungeons and has to, like, she digs her way out of the dungeon. I'll spoil it for you. She digs her way out of the dungeon, which required her digging her way through a septic system. And that is why I remember this book. I also remember it because she's just a really awesome character. I actually believe that this was eventually turned into a series. There's 2 more books, but I picked this one up. I'm probably going to give this one to my niece that I was talking about because she loves princesses, and this one was definitely interesting. I'll give it that. The next book I have actually still has a sticker on it from when I bought it a little while ago. 15 cents. It's Ida B. And I remember, Ida B by Catherine Hannigan. I remember reading this, and same thing as Just Ella, like I remember it so well that when I walked into the used bookstore and I saw this, I was like, oh my god, I remember that book. It is about a homeschooled little girl whose mother comes down with cancer and how she learns how to deal with that, and also how she deals with the world around her, because then she has to go to public school and she's just a very imaginative, creative human being, and the world doesn't always accept us that way. And she's also trying to save her apple grove. She talks to trees. Like, she's just a very cute little girl, and it's sweet. It is a very sweet story. I actually gave this one to my niece as well, and she loved it too. I think, like, you just find pieces of yourself in books, and this was definitely one that you, like, find a piece of yourself in, for sure. The next book is called Witch Child by Celia Reese. Once again, one of the Scholastic Book Fair books. I believe this came in a pack of 3, if I remember correctly. This is the original one that I bought. You can tell by the yellowed pages. Is that the best? Ugh, I die. I've read this one several times too. I still love it. This one is about, if I remember correctly, see, I was trying to remember real quick, about the daughter of someone who is convicted of being a witch and killed. And she finds a book in their house that is a witch, like, spell book. She then goes on a journey of finding herself. It's one of the finding yourself sort of stories. And along the ways you hear, this is the book that introduced me into, like, the Salem witch trials, like, that whole category of books and of people and of history. So this one was definitely one that I remember. I obviously kept it along with me. I believe it reads like a diary. Yeah, it does read like a diary, which is really cool. But yeah, I really like this book as well. The next book, I think everybody has read this book. And it's a series of unfortunate events. And I mentioned this in my newbie tag video, but this is the first book that I binge read. I think at that point there was only 6 books in the series. Now there is 12. And it's over. It's done. But yes, I definitely binge read all of these books. This was like the first series of books I got for, like, Christmas. I think this was the first series that, like, my family picked up on me, like, loving to read. You can't get any better cliffhangers, and you can't get any better beginnings than a series of unfortunate events. Lemony Snicket did that so perfectly, and it's perfect for the age group too. Like, the beginning of the story being kind of, like, mysterious, the author playing off like, oh, I'm mysterious. I just remember the beginnings of, you don't want to read this. This is an awful tale. This is horrible. Why would you read such a thing? Just shut the book. And then you read the book, and then there's also, like, a really great cliffhanger at the end. And I think Lemony Snicket was a genius when he wrote these books. Like, he knew what he was doing, especially going back as an adult. I recently bought the whole series for my own kid. Eventually, it's beautiful. It's on my bookshelf. You just can't get it any better than this. I've always loved, like, the cut pages, the envelope pages. This is where I learned about envelope pages, actually, as funny as that is. Okay, the next book is still my favorite book. It is the top of the top, the cream of the crop. Bloody Jack. It is being an account of the curious adventures of Mary Jackie Faber, ship's boy. So, if you are from Instagram, then you know that nautical adventures are one of my favorite stories ever. I have a whole bookshelf full of just nautical adventures. I'm currently reading the Mad Ship trilogy, so it's something that has continued on in my life. But this is where it starts. This is also the trope of a female who disguises herself as a man or a male, and I love that as well. This is another one of those books, just like Just Ella or Ida B, where you kind of, like, I found myself in this character. Like, me and this character are best friends. Like, I love Jackie Faber, Mary Faber. I grew up with her. I think the last book that came out in this series, once again, it's another 12-book series, was when I was in high school, actually. No, oh my god, no, college. I was in college when the last book of this came out, and sadly the author had passed away, and his wife was the one who wrote the last book, with, like, all the things that he had on his desk, which was really interesting, because if you read the last book, it definitely reads like that. It's like 4 books put into one book. It was actually one of my critiques of it, and then I found out why it was that way, and I was incredibly sad, because I could have read these my entire life. I reread these on a regular basis. It's a nautical adventure. It is like the quintessential nautical adventure. It is. It's an orphan disguises herself as a boy in order to get on a ship and to get away from a bad situation, and she goes on adventures. Like, any adventure you can think of. Like, she ends up in Australia at some point. Like, she ends up on the coast of Asia. She falls in love with another boy, and they have like this crazy whirlwind romance of like bumping into each other, but they're separated, and they bump into each other, they're separated, and she like plays these men. Like, it's so hilarious. She has a bunch of friends. She eventually ends up at a girls' school where she learns so much. She learns how to be like a sophisticated woman. Like, it's amazing. It is definitely a ride. And like I said, I reread them nowadays, and I can't find anything wrong with them. They're awesome. I don't even think they are in publication anymore. I don't think they make these books anymore, which makes me very sad. So if you see these at a used bookstore, you need to pick one up. They're by L.A. Meyer, by the way. Should have mentioned that. L.A. Meyer. Okay, the next book I'm about to start ranting about again. So, the other videos, if you have seen, I have a thing about vampires, and this is where it began. That is Cirque du Freak. This is by Darren Shan. He is a horror writer. He's a horror genre thriller writer. I think he has a couple of adult books. Most of them are young adult. I think he has a zombie series. He has a companion series to this, but this is where I fell in love with vampires. So the vampires in this book, honestly, if I were to choose a vampire, I think this is the vampire I love. Like, I would want to be if I was a vampire, which I don't want to be, but anyways, this is about a boy who goes to a circus of freaks, and watches it with his friends. He steals a spider, and that spider belongs to a vampire, and in retribution, not retribution, but like to get the kid back for stealing the spider, he turns him into a vampire, or a half vampire, excuse me, and then they go on an adventure together, and you get to see like this ginormous world of vampires. And once again, it's a long journey. It's another 12-book series. I think that was the thing back then for middle grade. And there's horror, and there is adventure, and he gets himself into a bunch of situations that he shouldn't be in. There's time travel, there is other freaks, there's werewolves, if I remember correctly. There's tons of different kinds of vampires. There's like a vampire mountain. It's just an epic story. It's just like epic middle grade, as weird as that is. To me, this was epic when I was a little kid. So loved this. These are new also, because I never owned these. These are their new books. The next is another well-loved copy of The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. Percy Jackson is the character. If you haven't heard about these, just look it up. Watch the awful, horrible movie. I read these as a kid as well. Love this. I've always loved Greek mythology, so I think my cat might be dying. I think she just barked. You know cats can bark. I don't know. Okay, anyways, The Lightning Thief. This is an introduction into Greek mythology as a middle school student. Yeah, and it just goes from there. I literally just read a retelling of Hades and Persephone. I have every mythological book you can think of, really. I mean, I have a whole bookshelf filled with mythologies, not only Greek mythology, but mythologies from other cultures and regions, and this is where it all began, so lots of nostalgic there. Okay, the next book we have to talk about. I don't know if anyone else read these books. They were a weird book to read when I was young. It's the Pendragon series by DJ McCall. Along with the series Unfortunate Events, I rebought these books because I figured I'd have them on the shelf in case my kid wanted to read them. However, I reread this first book, and it is problematic in very interesting ways. I wasn't like the greatest fan of these when they came out, but I went ahead and read them. It's another one of those like 12-book long journey of characters. This one is set, it's a time space travel, so it's almost like a Doctor Who sort of thing going on. They travel in time, they can travel through space, they see different universes. I think that was what held me to reading these as much as I did. However, rereading the first book, like I said, there's some problematic things. The perspective of the male character here when addressing female characters and other new cultures. I don't know if it's because he's supposed to be like a 15-year-old boy, not very worldly, and he's like thrust into like this crazy journey in different universes and different places, different worlds, that you kind of get that perspective of I don't know how to say it. He just like, he doesn't get it. I think he has like this crush on another character, and it just talks about her being dark skinned and he can't get over it. I wouldn't recommend reading these or giving these to kids to read nowadays. It's just one of those old school perspectives that you just don't see anymore. And like I said, I don't know if that's because of the age of the character or the time it was written, but not very good on your reread, just so you know. Glad I reread it before I handed it off though. Okay. And then the creme de la crop, Eragon by Christopher Paolini, I believe is what it is. Sorry, I'm bookmarking it. Actually it's funny enough as it is, it's a Eragon bookmark. This was the first like epic fantasy, high epic fantasy that I've read. And obviously like that has led into so much high fantasy, so many fantasy books, so many long fantasy books. This is where it began. I think this could be where it began for a lot of people. Any sort of dragons, I'm down for. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. This is just one of those books. Upon reread, once again, same thing with Pendragon. I don't know if this was because it's a 16-year-old character, boy character, or the author himself was only 18 years old, but the weird fascination with the elf, I forget what her name is, kind of threw me off on a reread. Not gonna lie to you, I'm just kind of like, the world is burning down around you and all you can think about are the elf's boobs. Like, can we not, you know, think about other things? Like, I don't know, you have a dragon and you're about to go fight in a battle and you've never trained, maybe just for a couple months. But anyways, maybe I'm missing something, but the 16-year-old boy's obsession with the elf lady, who obviously does not give a crap about him because she has her priorities straight and she's more concerned about the world burning down around them, is very interesting. But yeah, I think it gets better as you go along. The unrequited love in this is just not very good. And like I said, I don't know if it's because it's a 16-year-old boy's perspective. That's not my perspective as an adult female and also a 16-year-old female. Or if it's because an 18-year-old boy wrote it. And I mean, maybe that's what you guys think about when you're about to go into a battle to the death to save the world. I don't know. You guys tell me. And last but not least, this video is quite long. I put this last because I want to make sure everyone knows that I didn't read this book when I read like A Glory of Unicorns. This is like a progression as I get older, and that's the Modern Fairy Tales by Holly Black. I recently reread this, and same issue I had with the Folk of Air series is Holly Black knows how to make a universe, knows how to make a world, knows how to write about fairies. She can paint a beautiful picture, but her characters and their motives are not problematic. I don't want to say problematic, but like not good, not very good. This screams angsty teenager. Like I have to rant about this for just a second. There's a character in here that literally finds herself addicted to fairy drugs and living in the sewers where she's being threatened on a daily basis because she walks in on her mother kissing her boyfriend. And her mother and her family has reached out to her several times and is like, hey, come back home. I'm sorry, but maybe it's the old me, maybe it's the 26-year-old female me saying, why don't you just go home? Honey, go home. Go home. But yeah, I mean, like I said, nostalgia. I still have it on my shelf. I'm not planning on getting rid of it anytime soon. I definitely would not have my kids read it at the age that I did, but it's still, you know, when I read it, it was the shit. I'm sorry, I love this shit. And then I also read The Fairy Wars, which I need to figure out who the author is, and maybe I'll put that up here. I read The Fairy Wars, love that. This was the introduction to fairies. But yeah, upon reread, questionable. Okay, so we've got the introduction to witches, Greek mythology, nautical adventures, dragons / high fantasy, and fairies. So welcome to my channel. Please put down below any of the books that you either read as well and your opinions on them now looking back, or put down some of your childhood books that you loved. I would like to know. Am I completely off post? Did no one else read A Glory of Unicorns when it came out? I need to find someone else who read A Glory of Unicorns. Anyways, hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Like, subscribe, and comment. Tell me all the fun things. I'm gonna go finish my day, and I will see you soon.